Morning, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I am your host, Mr. Graven. All right, guys, so I'm off to a late start, but I kind of wanted to do something a little different, getting ready to start up the new year. And specifically, I wanted to get on the PTS and go over gear, races, weapon traits, and weapons, what you're going to be picking. Like, a lot of players in this game have always been told, you know, this is the best scenario. And to me, it's kind of like, I see like the sandbox elements in the game, and I understand, like, you know, some of the indifferent values that can occur between race selection, gear selection, and how that translates to your character sheet. So today, that's kind of what I want to do. I just kind of want to go over a gear selection on a Khajiit. We'll make it a red guard, and we'll see how that adversely affects our character sheet. Morning, Lewis. Because at the end of the day, what you're trying to accomplish, regardless of your class and your race, is a reflection of character sheet. And that's why gear selection, Mundus selection, and also race is going to play an important role, how you build that. Because if you put one gear on one race, it doesn't necessarily transfer the same results to the other race. Hence why I'm always saying there was no best in slot. It never was, because the way the game was designed, it was intentionally designed so you would have to pick up a required or a coordinating set depending on your build parameters. And that's what I've always preached to people. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the coffers. Now, this is just a fresh Khajiit. We're going to go into a gear selection. I'll go into the crown store. I'll buy a race change. We'll change his race out. We'll come back. We'll take a look at what the stats look like from that perspective. Then we'll go ahead, go into it. I might have to also get a Warrior Mundus. I have the Apprentice and everything else, but I might need to get those, but I can get it in here. That's why I'm on PTS. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll go to the inventory. Morning, Robert. I hope everybody had a very good Christmas. Okay, so we're going to start off with like my Sunder set, my Sunder build. So we want to go with trial sets. No. Right there. We'll also go with, we need dungeon sets, medium. I hope Mystic and everyone else had a great Christmas. I did, David. Thank you. Thank you. Mystic's not dead yet. Nope. Not yet. You know, I'm old, but I'm not pushing up daisies yet. So we're going to take the Sunder Flame set. It doesn't matter at this point. Now, I'm not going to do any food. We'll get all the weapons here. Even though I'm not going to be... Tony, Merry Christmas, Mystic and family. Hope you had you have a great New Year. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that. Just got my tank past level 50, so now it's my pet sorcerer to get past level 50. Yep, it's a good time to do it though. Probably in food coma. Okay, so we're also going to get the infinite transmutation if I wanted to. Just whatever. Merry Christmas. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. I hope you had a good one. Okay, my inventory is full. Snap. Okay. Did I grab those? Probably forgot to do that. Let me check. Should be under consumables. Yeah. And I got to delete one thing. We'll delete the resto staff. Okay, so I need capacity. We'll get that. Wake up, a Zerg. Is at your door. Yeah, don't jinx me, man. I like large battles. A lot of people are like, you know, Zergling, whatever. I don't. I'm old school player. I used to play like DAOC and stuff, and I like the large battles. Though DAOC, the larger the battle, the more like. If anybody thinks the lag in Elder Scrolls is bad, it's really not in comparison. Larger scale battles in DAOC, kind of you saw it. It was pretty nasty, especially when effects went off. I didn't play for too long because, you know, I had so many games back then, you know. My inventory is full. Did I grab? The riding lesson. Okay, hold on. Let me destroy that. Grabbed the wrong one. I didn't want that one. Thought I grabbed capacity. Stamina. Did I grab the capacity? What the heck? That's the riding stamina. Riding speed. I did! Why didn't it take my capacity up? Ugh, okay. I think I got everything though. Let's try it. Let's do this. Okay. Okay, so I usually have alright. Okay, what is that? 4. Alright. 3. And 4. Perfect. Now I can delete these because I'm not going to use these and I'll get the monster set. Now keep in mind, everything in PTS you have to kind of switch out, but I'm not really worried about that. I mean, it does make a difference. I'm not going to say it doesn't, because it does. But I'm just kind of giving you guys a general idea of what's occurring here. Alright, Maul of Inferno. That's what I rock on that dude. Okay, I want 1 heavy and 1 medium. So we will go with a heavy head, and I'll go with the... Oh, no. No, I need the medium head because of the stamina. And we'll go with a heavy shoulder. That's fine. I can live with that. Okay. And medium shoulder. Now keep in mind this is all divine. So that does make a difference too on how you adjust those values a little bit. Okay. Now also what I want to do here is go to browse. I want to go to services. Alright, and we're going to go to the Warrior Mundus. I'm hoping. I might have to move it. There we go. I'll grab the weapons. So on my offhand, my main hand, I use a 2-hander. That's 1. And I use the Maul, right? But it's a different trait. That makes a difference too. Okay, now also I go with the sword, and I'll show you guys why here in certain situations. So I'm going to go up to the bow, and I use the Sunderflame bow. Okay, so I have a switch going on with this build, right? So on this side, I have the 5 2-fang, and then on this side I have the 5 Sunder, right? Now, I'm not worried about damage. What I'm referring this to is the character sheet. Now, hold on. I got to do champion points. Let's get that kind of allocated here real quick. Just enough to at least get the passives, not optimize it, really. Okay. Okay. Always 1208 on your precise for crit. Don't need any in that. I'm walking full penetration. Scale that up. But I need 75 points in here. Heavy attack, so we should go up. There's 75. I think I can get more. And I have 2 points left over. Bingo. We'll worry about resistance later. Take that down to about 9. That's up to about 12. This up here. About 9. Bring it down to about 6. Yeah, it's whatever. Just playing around anyways here. Okay. So let's go into the character sheet here. Now, currently, this is what's happening to our character sheet. Now, mind you, I don't have any food buffs on, nothing like that. But you're going to see a huge difference with the weapon crit. Now, with a configuration like this, right, it's important to cover this kind of topic. Because the weapon crit, I usually stay between 55 and 60. I don't usually go over that because there's a diminishing return on base damage, right? If you go over the 60% mark. Not saying you can't, I'm not saying it doesn't affect your critical strikes. What I'm saying, it derives so much damage from base, it ends up being like, oh shit, you know, I'm losing so much on base to try to crit more frequently, and that's intentionally designed. It's always been like that in majority of your MMOs. So I usually stay between 55 and 60. Now, if you take also a look on the back end here, I'm using a maul, right? The maul is a very, very important weapon to understand because it's 20%. When I go in, now let me go ahead and get these skills too for these passives. And I really want to cover this, and why, because what the maul does and everything else. Okay, on a heavy attack build that I have designed in this situation, I really depend on follow-up because it gives me a damage increase by 10%. Hence why, for the DK, it works out really nice to have them all in a PvE scenario because we get that finisher, which we typically don't have. And one, we can get follow-up, which is increasing our damage for our next ability. It doesn't have to be weapon-based. But this is the big one here, is the passives. Maces cause my attacks to ignore 20% of my target's physical resistance. That's a deduction from the top. At 18.2, I think it's 3,640 deduction. I want to say off the top of my head anyways. If, you know, I'm doing it right in my head. 3,640 from the top of 18.2, right? From the deduction, right? So that's a deducted value ripped from the top. Now, if it's a lower resistance, that will go ahead and scale. Same thing with PvP. PvP, the adjustments on the maul are according to each target's physical resistance. So at 20k, it's going to be, you know, deducted off that considerably. You know, 15k, 13k. You see where I'm going with this? Like, the less the target's resistance, the less the maul is effective. The more the resistance, the more the maul is effective. But in PvE trial scenarios with this build, we're running penetration. So that's why I said in the video, you'll want to use the sword. Because what the sword does, we don't need that penetrating value like we would in a 4-man. Penetrating value deductions are apparent. So the sword would be the better option because we're replacing the penetration value for a 5% increase. When we over-penetrate, then we lose DPS. So that's why the two-handed sword becomes more favorable in those scenarios. But in a 4-man, really, unless everybody's wearing total deductions, you're usually not going to cap over. Though this build specifically is designed for 16 point something on penetration value. So, and that's with taking into consideration the tank does apply the Crusher enchantment. So I still have a little breathing room with this build. So I did calculate this build specifically to aim that high in 4-mans, and then I could put the two-handed sword on and readjust those values in trial scenario. Yes, Storm. But anyways, so like I said, character sheet. We have it there. And this is very important to understand what the weapon crit is. 52.3, right? And what our base stats look like. So we have a 2770, and I'm just going to do a heavy attack really quick. Okay. So we have a 4.6, 3.1 on light. 5.0. 5.0. 5.2 base. There's 8.4 crit. Right? That's heavy attacks. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Crown store. Now, keep in mind, guys, Crown sales are in shop today. So, if you want to get something, the Crown sale is going down. All right. So, let's go to upgrades, I believe it is. Name and race change. Okay. Now, we're going to go in the inventory. Oh, we have to log out. That's fine. All right. So we're going to do a quick log out. And we're going to change the race. All right, so we're right here, and right there's our race. And we're going to go with the Red God. The Red God, yes, 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 yes. Okay, we're going to save it. We're going to confirm that. It's been successfully changed. We're going to go ahead, go back in. And what you're going to see is this. The crit's going to drop, right? Dramatically, right? It's going to drop. Now, the damage from the heavy attack is going to increase. But we're going to lose on critical strike value. And that's an important reflection. Yeah, I now hate myself because the Crown store sale. Yeah. Okay, so let's go into the character sheet. Now, look at this, right? Look at this. Okay, so the 10% value is gone. So we have the 52, right? Now, I don't know if I have to get those, replace them, but I think they're already placed. No, they're not. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to replace these skill points. Morning, Sylvia. I had a very good Christmas. I hope you did as well. Okay, making sure two-handed's also unlocked. I don't know. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we go back in here. Look at this. We went from 52 to 44, right? So a configuration like I have for my Khajiit is not necessarily the better scenario for a red guard because of those critical value drops. And that is also a determining factor on my Mundus. Keep in mind, I had the Warrior Mundus. So what would I have to do to offset that loss? Well, it's simple. I have to now take the Thief. I have to take the Thief. If I have the Thief. Yeah, right here. So now I have to take the Thief, right? Because I'm no longer a Khajiit. I'm a red guard. And that plays in a pivotal, a very determining factor. Now look what we did. We almost have a true indifferent value because we had 52 and now we go to 54. But we lose that weapon damage. Yeah, so I am torn between a Nightblade or a Dragon-Knight. What do you suggest for stamina? Well, it's going to depend on your play style. The Dragon-Knight is really, really good right now, sitting pretty on both ends when it comes to PvE and PvP. Nightblades do too, but the problem of it is going to be about your rotation, how comfortable you are with managing your rotation. I feel Nightblades have a lot more juggling in their rotation than Dragon Knights. Dragon Knights have a very more simplistic rotation because of those dots. So when you play a dot build, you can actually kind of have a little bit of more breathing room. The Nightblades have some dots, but they definitely have more burst between dots than typical Dragon Knights. So I feel Dragon Knights are really good for if you want to play up close, play the pocket, and you want a simple rotation. But if you really want more burst and damage, and especially, you know, towards that end phase, Nightblades are really good as well. So it's all about preference. If you want more range, burst type build, go Nightblade. If you want to be up front in the battle and you want an easier rotation, can't go wrong with the Dragon Knight. Zerg downed is dead. Yeah, like personally, if I get Zerg down, I don't cry about it. Like that's what I'm there for. Like I feel like I do good because I survive longer in large scale battles than most players. Not saying I'm better. I'm just more equipped to try to like move around in those scenarios and try to get out of people's eyes. There's a lot going on, and I really like that type of gameplay in PvP. So that's what the big deal here is, guys. Now keep this in mind. We had to go ahead and offset that critical value, right? Because of our race. It's not to say that the Khajiit was better. The thing is, the passives made the Mundus difference, right? It made the difference of which Mundus I had to take according to the build. Now, let's go ahead and we'll do a heavy attack. There's a crit. Another crit. I want the base. Now see, 4,640. Remember that. We were dealing 5,040 with the Khajiit. Right? Right? Remember that. We were dealing 5,040 with Khajiit. And we're dealing less with Redguard. Right? That's not to say the Khajiit's better. It's just stating there's an offset in how each race is going to perform with each attack, each ability, each light attack, so on and so forth. So when we're talking about supposedly min-maxing, there's no such thing as that because you offset those differences. Now, if I take the Warrior, I'd actually deal more. What about survivability? Nightblade or Dragon Knight? Dragon Knight for survivability. One bad thing, I like the damage of the Nightblade, but the survivability, unless you use an ability like, you know, what the hell is it in the dual wield? Unless you use the dual wield ability here, the Blade Cloak, it makes a difference. Stam DK has got a lot more survivability in the pocket. Hence why I took the two-hander with the Stam DK. I wouldn't do that with the Nightblade in PvE. But PvP all rules out the window. But in PvE, yeah. Anyone running Meridians and Durox? If not, could you make a build for a Templar in these two sets? My one friend is running Durox, but not Meridians. But that's an interesting idea there. You're talking about Stamplar, though, for sure. Right, Joe? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, go back to the Warrior, and we're going to go, it's over here. Now watch, once again, we're going to get that drop in crit. That's a very important thing to remember. Are the devs don't have true indifferent values, but the indifferent value is a very close marginal exception. I'm talking about 1.5 to 2.5 difference. And the devs do such a good job in trying to keep the classes as close as possible. A lot of people want to talk about balance issues. I assure you, out of all the games I've ever played, and which are a shitload, this game actually does better with balancing than most. The only bad thing is, with class-based games, you are always going to have slight differences in classes. It's a class. But when it comes to performance, depending on how you make that, Meridian, please do it. Yes. Okay. I will look into that, trying to do that tomorrow and see what I can come up with there, Joe. That's kind of an interesting, you kind of piqued my interest. I might do that on PTS though. So because on PC, I don't have all that. And I don't even think I have Meridians on my PS. I'd have to look, but I like where you're kind of ideally going. But yeah, it's a Stamplar. Because as soon as you said Durox, I knew where you were going with it. Okay. So we're going to do a heavy attack now with the Warrior Mundus. And we just want the base. Now look, 4-8. 5-3. So we get that follow-up passive. That's going to be a very important factor. Okay? Now look, did you guys notice something too? The crit damage, though it was less, dealt more with Redguard than Khajiit, right? But base damage, Khajiit did better. That's kind of the most interesting facts when you're taking a look at some of these tests. When you go into this, you have to understand, okay, I have a diminishing value on base damage, right? But by dealing sometimes less, critting less, I deal more base. And that's what you saw here, right? So I don't have that. Oh, no problem, Joe. Like I said, I'll take a look. Oh, let me switch back. My base is increased by to 4-8, right? But if I do the follow-up, which is going to increase it again, 5-4-7. All right. We'll go back to the thief. And we'll deal less, but more frequent crits. That's what you're doing. Hence why you needed a certain percentage, so you know you're going to lose base damage, but at the same time, all your damaging is going to, your crit's going to be more frequent, and you're going to be dealing more damage in the long run. But you don't want to overvalue the crit, because then your base goes down so dramatically that you're actually losing DPS in that aspect as well. Look, 4-1. Follow up though. 4-8-4. So we lose a little bit, right? We lose that little bit for extra crit. Not much, but we do. And that is what you have to look out for. So once again, one race isn't necessarily going to be the determining factor. It's going to be race, your build, and Mundus selection. So like I said, this build was designed for Khajiit. Keeping in ideal that I was going to keep the Warrior Mundus, right? But that didn't necessarily mean it was the only option, because I could go with the Redguard and just pick up the Thief Mundus. Now, when we're taking a look, like I said, this isn't a full penetration value set. So let's do the math here, right? So I have nothing into the champion points, right? We have them all, and that's a deduction of 3,640. Let me actually get out my calculator here. Hold on. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. Now, keep in mind I'm using the 2 Fang set, right? Now, the 2 Fang set has an 840 times 5. Let's make sure that I'm right and I'm not wrong. It's 830. Okay, so 830 times 5, that's 4,150, plus the 3,640 for the mall, right? Now, keep in mind on both sides, you won't have that penetrating value. That is a factor as well. But, you know, it is what it is. And then we're going to use the Sunderflame set, right? Now, the Sunderflame set, when we do a heavy attack, that's going to give us another deduction, but a factor to our full penetration. So, even though it's deducted from the target, we're going to add it to our penetrating value. Okay, now we're going to also add Major Fracture, because as a Stamina Dragon Knight, we have Major Fracture, which is 5,280. And then you can add the Crusher, but we won't do that. So without the Crusher enchantment, we're looking at 16,390 full potential penetrating value, right? Which is nice because we're looking at it at that 18,200. So if we take the 18,200, take away the 16,300, we almost have a 1,900 different cushion. So that's kind of leading up without exceeding. And like I said, the Maul's ideal in a 4-man, but in a trial situation, it wouldn't be. In a trial situation, we'd over-penetrate. That's why you take the sword. So doing a heavy attack, for example, with the Maul. We see a 4-5-3, right? We're going to switch this out to the two-handed sword. Now look. See it? We lose it. Why? Penetration. The 20%, once again, is a deduction from the top end. But once we exceed the penetrating value in a trial scenario, that would occur with a build like this, you would want the sword because that 5% would exceed because of the penetration threshold. So that makes that apparent. So food for thought, man. So if we got 20%, like say, for example, we were using the Warrior Mundus, and we end up going now with the Lover Mundus, with the sword. Now we should do pretty good there. See, now we're dealing more damage because of those penetrating values. Right? Penetrating value makes a difference. The Maul has way more penetration to its up front, but once you exceed, the two-handed sword becomes more dominant. Now, if you're talking about proc, you would apply, or bleed effects for dot, increased dot and proc effects. Axes become a little bit more tangible, because if I had a monster set, let's say like Veladrath or Selene's, that was any type of damage, I would desire the axe a little more. I lose on the damage, but I increase the uptime for my proc, thus increasing my damage even more considerably. Hope everyone enjoyed their Christmas. Yes, we did, Mustang, and thank you. Merry Christmas. Hope you did as well. Morning. So that is what we're looking at. But, and like I always tell people, don't necessarily believe that one scenario fits every situation. That is not the way this game is designed. The way this game is designed is you pick a race, right? If we go Bosner, we're going to have to, make up those values somewhere. We go Redguard, we have to make up another set of values somewhere. If we go Khajiit, we have to pick up those values up somewhere else. And build configurations are determining factors sometimes towards your race. Not Zerg down, I see. I'll tell you what, DC looks good, Storm. You'd be proud of them. They look dang good, man. Even some of the top dogs are getting involved in some of these epic battles. I'm like, geez, man. It makes a difference. I'm telling you. DC is like pulling ahead. They're like keeping in it. They're looking good. Anyways, man. Yeah, I wanted to do a quick vid on this and basically get everything out of the way. I didn't want to go through abilities. Didn't want to make anything crazy, but I wanted to show people there's not one best set. There's not one best race. There's not one best. What the hell is that? What? Did I miss something? You're a DC player, right, Storm? I think you are. You're on Xbox. I think you're DC. What I'm saying is DC looks good on PS4 right now. I didn't know if that's what you're referring to. This is my new build if you were wanting to know. But I'm just on PTS showing different races and stuff. But anyways, for the most part, that's what you want to look at. When you're taking a look at your race, when you go with the initial race, you're going to ask yourself, okay, what am I going to go with for my build configuration, right? Am I going to use Hundings? Am I going to use VO? Am I going to use Two-Fang Serpent? Am I going to use Automatons? Which on DK you wouldn't, but I'm just stating. Because someone taunted them a lot. Oh, yeah, with PvP? I don't feel like I did. I plead the fifth, man. I feel like someone did not aggravate them to start PvPing in a way that they take the lead every other hour. But they are. They are. Man, they're playing really good, actually. The scoreboards are only like gapped by like 150. They are looking really good. DC looks really good right now. I'm not even going to lie. I wish I could. I did rag on them a little bit. You know, because they are always losing. I mean, I'm talking like 3,000-4,000 deficits. And now, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Is this DC crew? Shit. Yeah, definitely. They look beast mode. They are not playing around. They want that. You can see it in their eyes when they come to a keep. And I'm not talking Zerg. These guys are playing tactical. They got their Zerg going for the push, but they got their little crews doing very guerrilla tactic warfare. It's impressive. I'm not saying it. It's very impressive. They're not. You don't see them sitting on towers and shit. They fucking cap resources now, cutting people off. Oh my god! I'm like, wow, holy shit. I'm like farming with a purpose these days. Shit. And it shows. It shows, man. I give it up to them. That's what I'm in there for. And, man, DC is looking pretty good. But, yeah. So, anyways, guys, once again, when you pick a race, no matter what race, I'm not talking like taking like a high elf and putting it on StamDK. I know there's people out there that do it. I'm not getting into that conversation or hybrid builds or anything like that. I'm just saying when we take a look at stamina builds, Magicka builds, not tanks, specifically DPS, what you pick in that race, you're going to offset somehow. You have to. There's not one determining factor. High Elf is really good on Sorks, right? Problem of it is this. Sorks already have less crit. They do get the passive in dark magic abilities, which gives them the minor sorcery. Increasing, or not minor sorcery, minor prophecy or something. Increasing their critical damage, right? Which is great. It's great when they cast a dark magic ability. But everything else, their critical value in High Elf, there's no critical value adjusted, right? So all of a sudden you have to worry about, okay, well, depending on my sets, do I need to take the Thief Mundus or Precise Trait? Because Precise Trait is another factor as well versus the Nirnholm. So Nirnholm's becoming very delicious in a lot of builds and transmuted quite a bit. Why? Because it's percentage value. The higher your base value in your weapon damage is a overall contributing factor to the Nirnholm. Why sets like Julianos and Hundings have always worked well with those traits. However, depending on race, Nirnholm becomes a negative factor if your critical value or your percentage value is not acquired. So if you take the Thief Mundus and let's say you're, not to say you would be, but hypothetically speaking, if you're at 40-something% critical value still, right? You would need Precise because you have something of value in the set. But that's why a lot of people want to stay with a critical set. Why? Because then they can make sure they have enough critical value to trait Nirnholm for that percentage increase. That's why it looks so delicious in majority of the times when you're configuring builds. I do the same thing. So, And that's why I do it, because I know that. But critical value becomes important, not so much race or one stat. It's all about your character sheet, reflection of your character sheet, what you lose, and what you need to pick up. Simple. Because, for example, I have precise weapon here, right? But it's not enough for this. It's not enough to push me up to that 50. It's just not. I have to go with the thief if I want over that percentage mark. Now, I could go with like less than no crit, increase base substantially. But is that going to sustain enough? Well, you'd have to test it. You know, you would have to go through and go in dungeons, and if you're on PC, do more accurate parsing. Now, I don't suggest target test thumbing. Uptimes and critical strikes would be apparent, but your value for penetration and what you're applying to a group scenario would be lost. So I always tell people, do a dungeon run with one Mundus, right? If you're on PC, push out your metrics, open up your spreadsheet, see what your values look like. Switch out the Mundus, go back in, and then see what those values are. If you're a console player, it's going to be played more by your feel a lot. You're going to go ahead, try a Mundus, go into a dungeon, see what it does, see how it performs, go back in. I always like to say keep above the 50% critical value. This is at 54. I try to stay between 55 and 60 as much as possible. If I'm a little bit lower than that 55, I'm fine with it, but I definitely don't want to push over 60, and I don't want to be under 50. So between the 50 to 60 is my target window majority of the times on every one of my builds. Though each race, each class, each build will have to be, you know, configured, because it's not going to be ideal in every scenario. So there you guys have it. But anyways, I just wanted to go over this. I hope this helps players. Don't worry about your race. Go with what you want, but keep in mind your Mundus and your gear is going to be a determining factor in your build for what values and stats you're missing. That's the only thing you need to worry about. Other than that, play how you like. Do what you like. I encourage it. I want to thank you, all of you. You guys are a blessing. You guys are the reason why I do this. Once again, I'm Mystic Raven. This is CSO Daily. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.